Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to the FIDE candidates in 2022. So we're now already in the round 9 and we're starting now this round with a beautiful gameplay by Teimour Radjabov against Hikaru Nakamura. This was a very important game because Hikaru had some good chances to catch up with Fabiano Caruana and Nepomniachtchi, as both of them played their match against each other. So maybe with a win and maybe with a drawish outcome out of this game, Hikaru would maybe be only 1 point behind Nepo and maybe half of the point behind Fabiano Caruana. So it would be very wild to see such an outcome. And then of course Hikaru could have also good chances because still he would have to play one more game against Nepomniachtchi. So as I said, many combinations could be possible in the tournament, but of course you have to make first some wins and you have to go round after round. You cannot just also focus on your opponent's games. You have to focus first on your games and then see maybe if something opens for you in some other games. So let's see now this beautiful game between Teimour Radjabov and Hikaru Nakamura. So I already played the first move. So Teimour opened with the move e4. We have here e5 by Hikaru Nakamura, knight to f3, knight to c6, and after bishop to b5, Teimour Radjabov played the Spanish game. The Ruy Lopez is on the board. So knight to f6, we have the so-called Berlin defense by Hikaru Nakamura, and now the move d3, which is of course fixing now here the pawn structure in the center. This move order by black allows now black also to develop the bishop in a beautiful and active way. And many times now these days the main line is something like bishop to c6, but here Teimour Radjabov played a more flexible line with the move c3, which I kind of more like. I like to stay with my bishops on the board because it's not, in my opinion, time to give up immediately the bishop here. We'll still have time. You can always, I think, play bishop to c6 and trade off some pieces. So as I said, it's more flexible, this line by Teimour Radjabov. Castling also by Teimour. We have now d5 by Hikaru Nakamura and now knight to d2. This is now like a reversed perch defense structure here by Teimour Radjabov. If you have played maybe many times the perch defense from black's perspective, then many times you reach this similar pawn structure where you're playing knight to d2. From black's perspective, of course, knight to d7. But now, even if something gets cleared in the center, still you don't have this risk to trade off the queens because you want to stay from white's perspective with the queens on the board because you want to have, of course, then more attacking chances. So that's exactly what's happened. D takes e4. You see, you have to take now with the pawn. If you take now with the knight, then knight to e4, d takes e4, and now there is this risk to simplify the game too much, I think, by trading off the queen. So after move d takes e4 here by white, we have a5 by Hikaru Nakamura, and now we have queen to c2. And if you play bishop to c6 immediately, it's playable, but it's still risky here for white. It's not even time now maybe to take out the pawn on c6, because after b takes c6, okay, you can grab this pawn, but I think with bishop to a6, look at this, black is getting more and more active in this position. You have to play something like rook to e1 to get out of this mess, and even rook to e8 is here a possibility. Maybe white can take even the pawn on here c6, but it doesn't matter now. I think with queen to d6, maybe knight to d4 could be sort of a line, but now bishop to d4, c takes d4, queen to d4. Look at this. This knight is a little bit paralyzed. It cannot move, and this bishop is very active. At least I think black gained here equality, although black is down a pawn, but the activity of black's pieces is much better. But Hikaru probably knows about these lines, and probably Teimour Radjabov knows also that this is not bringing so much. It's, I think, simply too much simplified. So that's why here with the move queen to c2, Teimour Radjabov is still keeping the tension. Is saying we're staying with the pieces on the board, where still, of course, many complicated ideas can happen. So in the continuation, we have queen to e7, we have a4 by Teimour Radjabov, knight to a7 attacking the bishop to e2, and now knight to c6. We have knight to b6 and knight to b3, pardon me. So this is now a theoretical novelty. It's a good move. It's nothing special, of course. Black can retreat with the bishop, but many times in chess history this move has been played in this position, knight to c4 with direct attack against the pawn on e5, and then in many occasions black can be challenged with bishop to g5, bishop to h4, and bishop to g3. this will be sort of a route for the bishop, and then white could attack maybe the weakness on e5. Will probably occupy the d file, so nothing special still going on, I think, but white can have really a dynamic game. So maybe this move knight to b3 a little bit surprised here Hikaru Nakamura. Maybe he was not familiar with this line, but still, as I said, nothing special. The position is about equal, like usually in the common Ruy Lopez game. So bishop to a7 was played by Hikaru. We have bishop to b5, again with some threats to play bishop to c6, and now here to maybe take out the pawn on a5. And actually the best move is the most logical move here for black. Black needs now to play the move bishop to b6, even if of course bishop to c6 happens. Okay, b takes c6, but at least the a pawn is protecting. Look at this now. Still, I think for the messed up pawn structure, we have to say it, black has a messed up pawn structure, but black has, I think, a good compensation, especially because of the good bishop pair now, and at least white didn't take out the pawn on a5. But after move bishop to b5, what Hikaru did, he played bishop to g4, and this is not good, because of course Teimour Radjabov took immediately, and this is not something special that I think Teimour Radjabov pulled off here. It's almost like Hikaru beat himself in this position, because he allowed simply this kind of a tactic. It's not even really a complicated tactic. I think it's simply taking out the key defender that's protecting one single pawn, and I'm not sure how Hikaru missed this, but I also watched a little bit the live stream, and Hikaru Nakamura watched, I think, a little bit too much the game between Fabiano Caruana and Jan Nepomniachtchi. He was really focused on that game more than he was focused, I think, about his game, because no way that Hikaru would miss this simple move. I'm not sure what happened. So he played really what seemingly a good aggressive move, bishop to g4, but actually it's a huge positional mistake. Now Teimour Radjabov accepts the challenge, bishop to c6, and now here comes a new mistake. Here Hikaru Nakamura plays even bishop to f3. At least you have to take here bishop takes c6. Even if knight to a5 happens, then at least you have this tactic. You can play maybe bishop to f2, queen to f2. Maybe you can take out here this pawn on a5, but still it's a really bad position, because now white can play bishop to g5, so there is no risk of knight takes e4. We'll simply trade off the bishop for a knight, and look at this, we have a passer on the a file. We have also the possibility to connect two pass pawns with the move b4. So even if the position gets simplified into a way where only pawns are on the board, still this is a completely winning endgame, of course, here for white. So here Hikaru, as I said, messed up simply the position. After move bishop to c6, he didn't even play this line bishop b takes c6. He played this one, bishop to f3. But now after g takes f3 and b takes c6, probably what Hikaru was hoping for, that actually he could maybe create some checkmate threats by playing the move knight to h5 and then knight to f4. But the downside, of course, about this tactical sequence is that still the bishop is controlling the f4 square. Whenever the knight jumps on f4, I'm sure that Teimour Radjabov would take this out, take the knight out immediately on f4. Now actually it's white that's attacking the king, because now white can play king to h1, and then we can play also king to rook to g1, attacking here the g file, of course, with some heavy artillery. So as I said, this is not working here for Hikaru. The computer relation is about +1, so nothing dramatic, nothing special, but it's much easier now for Teimour Radjabov to play the game, especially now because here Teimour simply took out the weakness on a5. And here in continuation we have queen to e6 by Hikaru Nakamura, where he is not allowing this active square for the knight. If the knight comes, of course, on c4, then it's again a good piece. But now, of course, the knight can be retreated to b3. Even if you take here, for instance, if in this sequence knight to a5, even if you tried bishop to f2, again the same idea, nothing dramatically changed. Rook to f2, you can take out this one, but look at this b4. As I said, we have here a pawn majority attack, 3 versus 2, and especially because of the support by the bishop on e3. Look at this, the rook has to retreat. We play bishop to e3, we're threatening also bishop to c5. Look, we just push pawn a5, a6, a7, maybe include the rook on the d file. This other rook can come into the game, so basically the game is over here for black. So really stunning idea. So after move knight to f5, as we said, queen to e6, we have queen to e2, knight to h5. As we said, if the knight jumps on f4, we'll take it out immediately here from white's perspective. So it's nothing special that Hikaru Nakamura pulled off here. So b4, Teimour continues with his plan, simply expanding on the queen side. We have a passer here from white's perspective, so we're using now our main advantage. So in the continuation, king to h8, king to h1, h6, we have rook to g1. As I said, actually white is attacking the king side, although seemingly white king is more endangered because we have a double pawn structure. But as I said, you don't have support with your minor pieces. You can maybe include somehow the queen here on the light squares, but there's no support by some other pieces here by black. So in the continuation, we have f5. Hikaru is trying to spice up somehow the game to at least create some kind of a dynamic play. But now rook to g2 connects, of course, here the second rank, and we have now f takes e4, we have queen to e4, and now rook to f6, we have bishop to e3. This is also a good move, because if bishop to e3 happens, and that's exactly what happened, we have f takes e3, and now the knight again cannot jump on this very active square. So now the square is taken, and now the knight is cornered, the knight is simply out of game. And here it's a much better continuation, of course, here for Teimour Radjabov. So queen to d5, we have a queen to g4, we have queen to f3, and now after queen takes f3, rook to f3, here Teimour Radjabov protects now this pawn on e3. But now the downside about this tactical sequence that Hikaru Nakamura played here is now also this weakness on c6, then also the e5 is weak, then also the c7 is weak. So white needs simply again to play on this side of the board, on the queen side. And when the queens are off the board, at least what Teimour Radjabov prevented here is are some complications, because when the queens are on the board, then of course there are always some checkmate threats, maybe some wild tactics. But without the queens, white can play really solid game, nothing special. I think Teimour Radjabov cannot lose this game anymore. So in the continuation, we have c5, we have a knight to c6 attacking the pawn on e5, we have c takes b4, c takes b4, and that was also some kind of a mistake here by Hikaru Nakamura. In my opinion, you have to wait here. If, for instance, instead of this knight to c6 move, if, for instance, b takes c5 happens, look at this. This is not good anymore. Here for, sorry, of course, you cannot do this because the knight is saying, let's go a couple moves further. So you don't have to take out this one. Maybe you can play e4, but look at this. For instance, if white takes out now, that's the point about this sequence. If b takes c5 happens, look at this. This is only one passer now, and this passer can be stopped. So the evaluation is about equal now, although white has an extra pawn here on the queen side. But that's a different story. Now let's go back. When Hikaru Nakamura took here with c takes b4, we have c takes b4, and look at this. These are two connected pawns. Okay, this is not a passer, but still this b pawn can always support the a pawn, and it's a little bit different story. If now, for instance, this pawn would be on the c file, and it would be, of course, deflected from the pawn on the a file, then it's not such a dynamic position anymore for white, and it could be maybe a drawish position, although maybe white should be slightly better because of the supported pass pawn on the a file. So as I said, here Hikaru didn't have to take. You wait, and you wait maybe here white to take the pawn on c5, but these are then double pawns and nothing dramatically changed. So again, a new mistake here by Hikaru Nakamura. I'm not sure what happened here, simply allowed here too much dynamic play here for Teimour Radjabov. After c takes b4, rook to f6, we have b5. So as I said, let's see how the pawns are dancing now together. We have rook to d6, we have a5. It's now very easy for Teimour Radjabov to find the next best move. We have knight to f6, a6, simply proceeding with the normal idea, and now knight to d7. And this is again sort of a slight inaccuracy, because the problem about this move is you cannot play rook to d7 anymore in order to protect your c7 pawn. That move, of course, here can be later attacked with the move rook to c2. You see in a couple more moves that this will be also a huge problem, the pawn on c7, but they continued with this normal plan, simply pushing the pawns further. So we have king to g8, we have here rook to c2. As we said, we want to play somewhere with the knight and simply take out here the pawn on c7. So we have king to f7. knight to b4, the pawn is hanging. Actually, here in this sequence, Hikaru Nakamura has to even sacrifice a new pawn. We have b takes c6, and now suddenly Teimour Radjabov has two pass pawns here on the queen side, and this is now completely winning endgame here for Teimour. So knight to b6, we have e4, we have knight to c8, rook to a2, simply protecting now the pawn, knight king to e6, and now rook to a6, with some ideas, of course, even to push the pawn further and simplify the game. So we have rook to d4, we have knight to d5, and after king to d6, here knight to b6 was played by Teimour Radjabov, and in this position Hikaru Nakamura resigns. So what's the point? Look at this. Even if you try something, I don't know, knight to b6, rook to b6, you can maybe attack the rook like this, but you get this one. The problem is now if you play king to c6, then you get this one, and then it's game over. You cannot take, of course, because of the promotion. If you support your back rank, then of course we take, and now we promote simply a new queen. So here in the continuation, after rook to b7, the potential maybe move could be here for black to move king to c8, but look at this. Now we're simply playing rook takes g7, rook to d8. You have to cover now your back rank, because there is always the threat of rook to g8. So maybe you can play rook to d8, but look at this. This is now winning c7. You can play maybe rook to e8, but now with rook to b1, you're the winning and immediately, because if you take, then you get checkmated here. If you don't react, still a rook to b8 will happen, and there's simply not a way here to defend its position anymore from black's perspective. So really, I'm not sure what to say. A bad game, I think, by Hikaru Nakamura, where he played really a blunder in the beginning, and he had such a bad position in the continuation of the game. I'm not sure what's happened, if he missed something. I watched the stream, and I saw that he watched a little bit too much the game between Caruana and Nepomniachtchi. But still, Hikaru's performance was so far really great. Still, he has some chances, I think, because still he can win against Nepomniachtchi. We'll see. Maybe Jan will also start to lose some games, but I thought really before this round that finally Hikaru got it, and that he could actually maybe be really one of the top favorite to win the whole thing. So as I said, it didn't happen. We'll see now in the continuation if he can get back and maybe spice up a little bit the tournament further. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Ruy Lopez. If you want to see more games from the super event, check out my coverage so far with some other great games that we have seen. Here's the link of our whole playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.